Hello, everyone. I'm Denton Davidson, senior editor for Gold Derby, and I'm here with Oscar winner Gary Oldman, who plays Jackson Lamb in the Apple TV Plus series Slow Horses. You're a big movie star. You have an Oscar for Darkest Hour, and you've been nominated 2 other times. You haven't done a lot of TV, so what made you decide to do this series at this point in your career?
Well, I think, number one, the material was so good. I have been a fan of long-form TV, limited series, and have been amazed at just the level of acting, writing, directing, cinematography, writing, on the small screen. It was always my, hope, sort of fingers crossed, wouldn't it be great if something came in and one could have an opportunity to really develop a character rather than have a 2-hour window where you tell that story, and unless of course you're in a franchise and you do, in some respects you do get to repeat a character, right. But really develop a character and different